Do you want to grow an abundance of veggies but have no idea where to start? Or do you only have a small growing space and want to know how to get the most out of it? Well, I can teach you how to get an abundance of homegrown veg out of a garden bed just this big and a sunny windowsill. I'm going to release videos in real time to show you exactly what to sow, plant and harvest, and really importantly, also show you what to succession plant, which is how we really maximize our yields out of a small growing space. And I'm not trying to sell you some BS online course or anything. I just know how difficult it was as a beginner gardener trying to work out, especially in the Southern Hemisphere, what to sow, plant and harvest at what time of year. So follow along with this project that I'm calling the Internet's Garden Bed, where you and I build identical garden beds and in real time we sow, plant and harvest the same thing. And I will help you along the way with things like fertilizing and pest management. And on other platforms, and I've posted about this, I always get a ton of questions. So in the description, I'm going to put all of the frequently asked questions. The way this project will work is on Shorts, TikTok and Instagram. I will be posting week by week what to sow, plant and harvest, but here on YouTube, in the longer form videos, I will be posting the entire month at once. And in these longer YouTube videos, I get to fit a lot more detail. So I hope you'll join me on what I'm hoping will be the easiest guide to gardening ever made. And if you need help with building a garden bed, that's exactly the last video that I made, where I show you exactly how I build these and more importantly, how I fill them in a way that's cost effective and also will help your plants grow better. So without further ado, let's jump into it. But first, this video probably won't do as well in the algorithm as some of my others, so please make sure to give it a like or consider sharing it with a friend to help us all grow together. Let's start by talking about why we have all of these bamboo stakes in the bed. It's because our 3-meter long bed is going to be separated into 10 30 centimeter wide rows. And if you're following along with a container garden, this will help you roughly keep track that one row can be 1 or 2 pots or however many you have. Week 1. This will be the week that we start the first 2 crops that we'll manage to harvest. One's going straight in the bed and the other we're going to grow in a tray or something else. We'll talk about that in a moment. Now, the first thing that we're going to be planting in the bed are radishes. A rule of thumb for the project will be, if there's a crop that we're sowing and you don't like eating it, well, you can just skip that one and I'll help show you what to fill that bed space up with. The one exception to this is going to be radishes. The reason that we want you to grow these is the harsh reality of gardening is you're going to encounter a lot of obstacles and difficulties along the way. Anything from pests or wildlife, or maybe stuff's just not growing in your soil. And we're going to want to troubleshoot that with something that's pretty disposable and that grows really quickly so that we can fault find before the season gets away on us. However, one quirk of this project is that we want to start our radishes in the 2nd row of our garden bed. Now, a good extra step is if your beds are like mine and running north and south, you want to make sure to plant these towards the northern part of the bed, because we'll be planting a lot of the taller plants in the southern part of the bed to make sure that everything gets enough sun throughout the day. Now, in terms of how you want to plant these, you can either create really nice straight rows by using something like a spare plank of wood or a bamboo stake to help draw in a nice straight line and then sow the seeds directly into that trench. Or you can pull the mulch back across that whole 30 centimeter wide row and then just scatter plant them around. One of the nice things about radishes is that it doesn't matter if you plant them quite close together, because as they grow, they will push themselves apart. For my radishes, I am planting them in a nice straight row, but for the next crop, I will be planting them across the whole row so that you get to see both options. Now, if you really like radishes, you can squeeze a whole lot into your single row. You can do a double row of radishes like I have in the bed behind me. But for this purpose of this project, I have only sown a single row in this bed. Once I've sown the seeds, I pinch across just a thin layer of bed soil, or sometimes I will fill the row with seed raising mix. And then I'll pull across a very thin layer of mulch, mostly to help make sure that the soil doesn't blow away in the wind. Next are going to be the first seeds that we're starting in a tray. Now, I'm not talking about seed cells. We want to start these in a nice, big, wide open tray. We're going to be growing pea shoots, which if you've never had before, if you like green beans or snow peas, these taste really similar. They're great to use in salads and stir fries, and I put them in my ramen a lot. I nearly always have a tray of these on the go. Now, the thing with these is if we were to start these with actual pea seeds that you're buying off the seed rack, this would be quite an expensive thing to grow. Thankfully, there's a bit of a hack that we can do. If you go into the international aisle of a supermarket, you'll find a bag of dried peas. Now, it's really important that these are dried peas and not dehydrated, because peas are actually just the seeds of a pea plant. Now, if we want to get these to germinate extra quickly, we're going to put them in a jar of warm water and leave them to soak overnight. And then the next day, we're gonna fill whatever tray that we have with a layer of compost and then sprinkle the peas over this soil. The goal is to get them about 1 centimetre apart, but you really don't have to be perfect. Then cover them with half a centimetre of soil and water it in well to make sure the soil is nice and moist. And then we're going to put these in a sunny windowsill inside. You'll start having a few pea shoots coming through in the next 3 to 5 days, and these will be ready to harvest in only a couple of weeks. And these are something that I nearly always have on the go. In fact, I've got my last tray here, which are pretty much done. Because they get so root bound, after a while they do just die off. Once they've sprouted, you've got about 4 to 6 weeks to use them, and you can harvest them and they'll usually grow back and you'll get a second harvest out of each tray. And once your tray of pea shoots are done, you can just lift the whole thing out and chuck it straight in the compost. Week 2. This week we're going to be sowing our second crop directly into our garden bed, and we're also going to be starting 2 plants that aren't actually vegetables but are going to be super important for the long-term health of our garden. Now this week we get to start the crop that's going in the very front of our garden bed. We're starting carrots. Now, once you grow carrots for the first time, this will be a crop that you will grow for the rest of your life. And the great thing about most of the Australian climate is that you can grow them year round. The only exception is the very, very high heat of summer and the very cold of winter. The same as last week with our radishes, we can either sow these in nice, neat rows, or we can pull back the mulch across the whole row and then just scatter plant them, which is exactly what I have done with these. Now, I have never really had a problem with getting carrot seeds to germinate, but some people do. So an additional step that you can take that will help them germinate quicker and also help up your success rate of germination is to, once you've sown them, cover them with something that's going to help lock in the temperature and moisture. Something like some scrap pieces of wood, or on my other garden bed, I've used 2 old storage lids that just help lock in that heat and humidity to the garden bed. And you don't have to worry about these damaging the seedlings. After about a week, just come out and check them once a day and you'll start seeing the little carrot seedlings popping through. Now in our seed cells this week, we're starting something that most beginner gardeners don't actually know to do. And we're starting some flower seedlings. No, not flower that you eat, but the flowers that are pretty and smell nice. If you've attempted to grow a couple home veggies before, and they've gotten really riddled with pests, one of the causes of this is you probably haven't planted enough diversity and enough plant life that will encourage beneficial insects into your garden that will help eat a lot of those pests. And this is why planting flowers is really important. Choosing the right flowers for this project is something quite challenging, but 2 pretty great all-purpose flowers in terms of companion planting that we're going to use for this entire project are alyssum and marigolds. Marigolds are a nice little short stumpy flower that smell wonderful and come in a range of vibrant colours. And alyssum is this really nice little carpeting flower. And don't worry, by planting these, we are not giving up a single inch of growing space. We're going to be shoving these in tiny little pockets and corners throughout our garden bed and in between rows. For seed raising mix, I do make my own, which is a mix of coconut coir and homemade compost. But what I use for years that does work really well is if you just take a bagged potting mix and just sift out the really big chunky bits, it works perfectly fine. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you don't miss out on a single part with these, because through the height of summer, I will have to release some parts a lot closer together than monthly, because as we change from spring into summer, some things move really quickly and I really want to make sure that you don't miss out on a harvest window. Week 3, by now your radishes are probably starting to pop through and you've probably got a few pea shoots that might be ready for harvesting. But this week in our garden bed, we're going to be planting another one of the veggies that I promise you will grow for the whole rest of your life. And we're also starting a seed that will be the first thing that we succession plant into our radishes once this row is done. Going direct into our garden bed this week, we are putting in a couple rows of lettuce. That's right, in one 30 centimetre wide row, we're going to be planting 2 rows of lettuces. All future times that we're putting lettuce into our bed, we will be transplanting them from a seed cell into the bed. But because we've got nothing growing, we can direct sow them. And because lettuce seeds are so cheap, we're going to just put a lot of lettuce seeds into the bed. And you might not get that great of a germination rate, but that's great because we only need one to pop up every few centimeters. And you might think that this spacing is quite tight, but as long as we're willing to feed our bed appropriately, planting a lot of stuff a lot closer together is actually beneficial for us because it's going to help deter weed seeds and also help deter pests. I'll help you with feeding and fertilizing in the coming weeks. And this week on the windowsill, we're going to be starting our leek seeds. The one trick with leek seeds is they do want a little bit longer of a seed cell tray. And if you're not like me and you don't have some longer seed cells, a really great option is to actually use toilet roll holders. You don't have to cover up the bottom or anything, just stuff them full of soil and then plant the seed on top. Push them in 5 millimeters deep and give them a good water. Now in the 4th row of our garden bed, we're going to be planting an Asian green of your choice. Bok choy, pak choy, tsatsoi, all of them are pretty easy to grow and have really similar growing conditions. So just choose whatever you like. And if you have no idea what to choose, I'd probably just suggest pak choy, purely because I think it looks small and cute. The last seed that we're going to be starting in a seed cell this month will be one of the last things we actually plant into our bed this calendar year. We're going to need to get started on our tomatoes. For tomato varieties, the easiest thing to grow are actually cherry tomatoes. Although in reality, all tomatoes are about as hard as each other. The one thing with these is we will eventually be building a trellis for these, which I will show you how to do, but if you want to skip that, you can just skip tomatoes. To choose a variety, just go to your local nursery and pick out a seed that appeals to you. The one thing I will say is just give the name a quick Google and make sure that it's an indeterminate variety. An indeterminate tomato means that it will fruit for a longer part of the season. And typically in climates such as Australia, we will actually get more fruit off an indeterminate tomato than we will a determinate, which only fruits once over its entire lifetime. So that's the entire first month of your homegrown food journey. It's really not that daunting, is it? Now, any issues that you encounter, you can come back to this video, leave them as a comment, or consider jumping on the Patreon, and we have a chat there entirely for this project, where I'll help you troubleshoot through any issues that you encounter. Thank you, and I'll see you next time when we start planting out some way more exciting crops.
Is this